Hi, this is Robyn Hatfield.
And this is Tommy McElroy.
And we're going to be talking to you about some podcasting basics for small business.
I'm Dr. Tommy McElroy, and I am the owner and medical director of Echelon-Health and the host of the Ask Dr. Tommy show.
And I'm Robyn Hatfield with JSB Tampa, and I host 15 Minutes of Fame with Robyn. It's a small business marketing show.
What's a podcast? A podcast is a way to broadcast over the internet using digital media. You can use it as audio only. You can do audio and video. You could also use PDFs and other types of files, even including EPUB files. And then people subscribe to these and or download them from the web, and then they listen to these continuously.
So why podcasts? For small businesses, there's a variety of different ways. The first one is because it's inexpensive. Podcasting is a lot less expensive than most people think it is. And it's really simple to start. You really, as far as equipment, you really just need a good microphone to start off with. You can get them for around $50. Both Tommy and I both use a Yeti mic, which is, you can get one for less than $110. You can use Audacity software to record it, and it works on both Macs and PCs. That's a free software program. And then LibSyn is a good hosting program. It's around $5 a month. There's a bunch of different hosting software. Tommy, which one do you use?
I use SoundCloud, and it's a similar price.
Okay. So a lot of different hosting programs out there, and it's really your preference, but lots of user-friendly programs.
And the reason we're doing this is because the reason we're doing this webinar is because podcasting is a great way to expose yourself to your local community and present yourself as a source of information that is expert. So if you're a realtor, you can become the Wesley Chapel Realtor podcast that people look to for the latest and greatest about what's going on in Wesley Chapel or your neck of the woods. Or if you're a marketing person, you can present yourself as the local marketing expert. And this helps you build credibility and also gives your customer base more information about what you do.
Podcasting also gives you flexibility. You can share it on different platforms. We mentioned before you host it on a certain platform, but you're really going to want to distribute it. And SoundCloud is one way to distribute as well as iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and many different ones that Tommy's going to kind of go over a little bit later. But you can also share it across your website, your social media, through your email marketing, and so many more.
And again, when you see someone who's listed their podcast on Facebook, and it's also listed on the business websites of Facebook or potentially on Twitter, it gives you instant credibility because you are now the person who is in your community who's putting yourself forward as the expert, or at least one of the experts in your field. And that makes you different from your competitor who doesn't have a podcast or doesn't have any social media other than maybe just a site. So the first thing you need to do is determine what is your subject, and it can be broad. It could be gardening. It could be investing. It can be something that is simply storytelling is another popular one. But whatever it is, you need to make something that's important to you because you're going to be the one doing it, but y'all need to do something that is going to have an audience. So while I may be very interested in raising poultry, I may have a very small audience for that. And that's not to say that I can't do a podcast about that, but you do need to keep in mind that your podcast audience may not be very large.
Absolutely. And audience, and once you determine the subject matter, it's easier to determine your audience. There's actually there is actually a chicken. He's called the Chicken Whisperer.
Oh, yeah?
It's on the podcast.
Oh, I should start
so
that
there
one
you
too.
go. But yeah, so audience, you determine that after you nail down your subject.
And then the layout of your podcast. And the best way to find out how you want to lay out your podcast is probably to listen to podcasts. Listen to ones that you like. Listen to ones that you don't like. Determine which do you want to be like. So do you want to have a podcast that has multiple breaks? Do you want to have a podcast that's short and sweet? What I would not recommend is having a podcast that is very long, unless that's the way that the podcast is set up. So let me say, if it's a serial, for instance, and you're telling a story, then that would be a long one. But you have to determine your layout. That way you can go into it beforehand. Before you make your content, you'll know how much content you have to have and what kind of content you have based on the layout of your podcast.
Yeah, Tommy, what layout do you use for yours?
I have a variety of ones. The one I've settled on, though, is a podcast that's about 30 minutes long, and it has 2 breaks. And it basically starts with about 6-minute intro and then a a body in the middle that's bigger than that by about 2, and then a outro which is about the same. And I want to say intro and outro. Let's say intro segment and outro segment, because intros and outros are separate audio files that we'll cover later. But that's how I've settled on it, and that was because I did an interview with Dr. Craig Wax on Your Health Matters, and that's the way he does it, and I felt like it worked out well. It wasn't too long, but it gave us enough time to digest the material.
Yeah, and because my doctor tells me that I have attention deficit issues, mine usually stays under 15 minutes, therefore the 15 minutes of fame, but oftentimes it's under 10 minutes.
And you have to think about, what does your audience want? Is your audience going to listen to 15 minutes versus 30 minutes? So some of mine that are 30 minutes long is for a different audience. I do have some that are less than that, and those are more the general interest. So the ones that are more nuanced, potentially talking about health policy and things like that, takes a little bit longer. The ones that are more just informational, they may be only 10, 15 minutes.
So, the fourth thing that you're going to need for podcasting is you're going to need equipment. Now, I started off with an inexpensive one that was a headset that was around $50. After Tommy showed me his really cool blue Yeti, I then indulged and got the Yeti, which is a little bit above $100. But it's a really good quality microphone.
And we're actually recording right now with a Blue Yeti microphone. Some examples. This is the Blue Yeti microphone, similar to the one that we're using currently. It is a USB microphone. That means it plugs directly into your computer. It doesn't need any drivers. It works equally on Windows and Macintosh. And it also it helps to give you it gives you different layouts of the sound on the reverse of this. Yes, on the back side of this, it gives you 4 different recording patterns. So you can record in stereo, you can record holophonic, which means the whole microphone's recording. We're recording right now on something called cardioid, which is in the front of the microphone only. And then there's another one where it's bidirectional, where if you're recording 2 people on opposite sides, it can record only on 2 sides of the microphone. Excuse me. Behringer is a known manufacturer of mixers. There's also mixers from Yamaha and Mackie that people use. And a mixer is a way to use multiple microphones on one podcast. And in order to use a mixer, you're going to have a professional microphone. So what does that mean? Blue Yeti makes a Blue Yeti Pro. When that means that it's a USB microphone, but it also has what's called an XLR output. So if you look on the bottom there's a picture of a microphone, headphones, a mixer, a stand, and those 2 little components there. Those are the XLR inputs and outputs for a microphone. And that allows you to hook up your microphone to a mixer. And what would you want a mixer for? Like, again, if you have multiple hosters, or if you have different things going into your mic. You may have a computer that's putting out sound files on one side that goes into your mixer, and then you have a microphone, and then you may have something else. So it just gives you more flexibility. This is for advanced podcasting, and you may never even have to go there.
And Tommy, I know that in your studio you have something that goes over the microphone. What's that?
Yeah. So I have a pop filter. So a pop filter is a way, if you look at recording artists, it's a screen essentially that goes in front of the filter. And what it does is it slows down the velocity of your breath as you are speaking. So sometimes you can have a P sound or an H sound or any type of hard consonant that can cause a hiss, or not a hiss, but a pop. And it sounds loud over the broadcast. And so a pop filter decreases the velocity of the velocity of the airflow without changing the sound.
For the recording studio, both Tommy and I use Audacity. It's a free software program that can be used both on PC and Mac. And here's one of the websites you can download. You can find it just about anywhere.
And Audacity is called open source, so that means that it's freeware. And what it is that people have tweaked it and fine-tuned it, and it's actually on par with some of the more expensive recording softwares, and it's free to download. Also Adobe Premiere, which some people use.
And really user-friendly. I know for me, it was great. You could block out the white noise. You can block out background noise. You can fade in, fade out, add multiple tracks. Super user-friendly. And
then when we talk about intros and outros, this is where you will find that you're putting in intros and outros and maybe commercial breaks with bumper music using Audacity. So the intro and outro is a way to make your podcast sound professional. And the way you do this is you have someone record words that say what your podcast is about going in and out. And also on the outro, I usually tell people where to find you on the internet and how to download future podcasts or your current or your past podcasts. And you can go to Fiverr.com and hire someone to do an intro and outro, or you can have someone, if you know how to do it, produce one yourself. I actually have my intro and outro is produced by myself by a friend of mine, and he has a unique voice, so I wanted to use his voice. But Robyn's is produced by Fiverr, and it sounds excellent as well.
And it's a really cool sound when you're like, hey, this is the Robyn Hatfield with 15 Minutes of Fame with Robyn. It has the music included in it.
So if you want to hear mine, go to AskDrTommy.com and go to podcast, and you can hear my intro and outro. And what is your... JSBTampa.com/podcast. Okay. Bumper music is what you hear when you're listening to talk radio that goes in and out of a segment. Bumper music's a great way to transition, and again adds a little bit of flair to your podcast and makes it sound professional. Bumper music generally is royalty-free music. If you use music that is from a known artist, then they must be compensated. So I wouldn't recommend using bumper music, even though it's from your favorite band, unless you want to deal with the legal ramifications. That being said, there is ways to find bumper music, and if you go to our website, which we'll give at the end, we'll have links to where you can find bumper music that is royalty-free, good quality bumper music that you can utilize legally.
Awesome. Hosting. So there's a bunch of different hosting programs. I have here the LibSyn, which is approximately $5 a month to start. They have different programs depending on the downloads and in the capacity. But what's great about a lot of people get confused because they think that iTunes hosts, but iTunes is just a distribution channel. So you have to host it somewhere else. I know, Tommy, you said...
I use SoundCloud, and it's similar to LibSyn as far as price is concerned.
Awesome. And what I like about using different hosting programs is that they have built-in distribution channels that they can, not only do they push it out on their own platform, but they also push it out to other platforms, including Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, and so many more.
And the other advantage to hosting, well, the reason you have to host is that's where your podcast digitally lives. You can make the podcast digitally live on your own server if you'd like. However, that's going to draw bandwidth whenever people listen. So it's a better idea probably to host it on a professional server site like LibSyn or like SoundCloud. And then what you can do is distribute it over different distribution areas.
And so we mentioned distribution earlier, and that's just getting it out there so people can have access to it. You can use all the distribution channels that you can, and then also make sure to push it across your social media as well as website.
And the great thing about these distribution channels is, for instance, SoundCloud, you can actually go, and when you push share, it gives you an embed, which is a way to copy code, just copy and paste, and you can put that code, or your webmaster can put that code on your website. And so if you go to AskDrTommy.com under podcast, all of those podcasts are hosted on SoundCloud, but they appear on AskDrTommy.com through an embed. So embed allows you to put the podcast, although it's hosted somewhere else, physically on your website. So you can have a player and everything. The other benefit to distribution is you can use links simply to share with people via email, via Twitter. And then some of these links, depending on where you're sharing them, like for instance on LinkedIn, if you share a link, it'll bring up actually the graphics that are associated with that link too. So that gives you quick and easy access to media that is already used for your distribution, but now you're reusing it again to distribute it yourself through social media.
Absolutely. Anytime you can repurpose content, that's definitely the goal.
So if you want to learn more, podcastingforsmallbusiness.com is your place to go. We're going to have some more events coming up, and we'll actually have live events as well. And
Yep.
Robyn?
We have a half a day podcasting workshop coming up in June, and that half day will be 9:30 a.m. to noon. It'll be hands-on, meaning you'll bring your laptop. We'll have our microphones there. We'll have everything there, and you will leave that day knowing exactly what you need to do, but also you'll leave that day having recorded your first podcast, having it hosted it, and distributing it. So, hands-on help, both technical and
And
from a
this is
subject.
and this is going to be a lot of fun. These type of events are what we like to do because you get to actually meet the people and understand what their needs are, and then help them develop podcasts and help give them the tools to help themselves. And so this is what we're doing going forward as far as education, but we'll also be doing more webinars. So stay tuned, and podcastingforsmallbusiness.com will be your go-to source for podcasting and promoting your small business on the internet and social media throughout your community.
Awesome. And if you want to get the downloadable notes, you go to podcastingforsmallbusiness.com. There's actually a link that says the printable downloads.
Thank you all, and thank you, Robyn.
Awesome. And one more thing on the equipment. So we have, it's at AskDrTommy.com, but if you go to Podcasting for Small Business, it links you to exactly the equipment, and Tommy has some great recommendations on there.
And basically what I've done is I've linked there to Amazon, and what you can do is you can click on Amazon, and from there the product links will come up. And if you utilize their sources there, you can research just about anything through Amazon. Then if you decide to buy it later, you can buy it through there. You can also use Amazon to compare prices, and actually sometimes the local shops will match your prices that you find on Amazon. But what I have listed there is some background information on tech and about podcasting, and then a way to just look at some of the different things and educate yourself before you make the plunge.
Yeah, and if you know Dr. Tommy, he is super gadget oriented. So benefit from his experience, benefit from his knowledge, and benefit from his testing different things, because you can't get that anywhere else. So check it out, and thank you so much for tuning in.
And we look forward to seeing you in June, hopefully.